Well, what comes on is a screen that it says to me, so-and-so wants to record this meeting, and I say allow. And that reminds me to record it, among other things. Okay, so we are now recording to the cloud. We are still in review mode, so I didn't think about it, but thank you, Callista, for reminding me. And for our purposes of understanding, the message goes to the Ocean Unity email, not to the Ruth Miller email when the Zoom is prepared. And that's not one I check regularly, so just so we know. All right. So that's part of, if we look at the second paragraph under service, the gifts of God are not a reward for faithful service, but service is one of the steps that lead to the place where all the fullness of God awaits us. You see that? Mm-hmm. Good. So we're taught to go out and do good things so we can get good things. That's the way our culture teaches us. That the people who give anonymously know better.
Yeah.
And they're also following Jesus' dictum, let not the right hand know what the left hand is doing, or vice versa, the left hand know what the right. And the reason the left is your receiving hand and the right is your giving hand. When you're doing energy work, you receive on the left, and the left is the feminine side, the receptive side. So as we are in faithful service, we are reinforcing through our actions what we know to be true that we have just stated, right? So the first step is to state truth, and the next step is to serve, to act in that space of that truth. Now, if you're doing a treatment, the action is to include someone else in your awareness, right? As knowing with them and for them what you know for yourself. If you are serving physically, it's to know that what you are doing is not in response to lack, want, or need, but to be the two of you expanding what God is through your shared experience. And that's part of what Gerald Jampolsky was talking about as he was trying to get people to understand the Course in Miracles. He was saying, teach only love, and love is letting go of fear. And one of the things that he was a psychiatrist who'd been trained to be the one in charge. And he learned that the way to actually be more effective is the two of us are on this journey together, because you've come to me because I'm ready to learn something. It was a very powerful teaching. All right. So it's one of the steps that lead us to where that experience of all the fullness is, right? And then the achieving understanding, we grow by using for others the light and knowledge we have. Right? So as we know truth and we are sharing it, and this is what the Course in Miracles is saying when it's saying the only way to get to heaven is to take your brother there. The two of you, it's the journey of the sharing that leads you to experience more, right? So being a hermit is only possibly helpful if your hermitage is a service. Does that make sense? If you are being in service through what you are doing in the hermit state. The rest of the process of becoming who we truly are involves sharing it with others. All right. So that was a couple of key points in lesson 8 that we didn't go over last time that I wanted us to spend a little more time working on. So number 3, serve others, giving from the abundant time, energy, and resources that Spirit provides, not that you have. A very different understanding, yeah? So if I can know that this is flowing through me for us, for the well-being of the whole, for the well-being of all of us involved, then I am actually expanding the experience of the divine.
There are about 4 charities that I like to support, usually a couple times a year, but specifically before the end of the year. And one of the most difficult things I have is knowing what my balance is in my checking account and sitting down and writing out those checks.
That's been true for most of us. Right. Uh-huh. And knowing that whatever you are sharing with others is being returned in full, pressed down to a measure.
Yeah, and knowing that I don't have to know or figure out when it's going to come or how it's going to come. I just know it'll be there so I can do this.
All right. All right. And that's a real powerful thing for all of us to get. Some of us, we have to do that to pay the bills. Some of us, we can do that to share with others out of their openness to receive at a higher level, not out of their need.
Yeah.
They're open to receive at a higher level, not because they need. Does that make sense?
Say it again.
When we share our finances, it's because we are sharing their openness to receive at a higher level, not to fill a perceived need. All right. You're not giving money to a nonprofit because a nonprofit says we need more money.
Yeah, I grind up, I shred the ones that start out. We need your help.
I got something from one of my alumni, actually San Jose State. I got something saying, thank you, you have made a difference. And I'm going, I didn't give anything. But they're telling everyone that they've got information for that we've made a difference as a group, which is an interesting opening for a donation request. But
May I say something?
Of course.
Oh, one thing that I've been learning in the last couple of years has been my out of balance with the receiving. I was an very good at giving in all areas of life, right? But I wasn't a good receiver. So I'm really, and I've always been taken care of, and I see the abundance. So been working with actually opening up to be able to receive, because I feel like there's a balance, right? It's circulation. It's the giving and receiving is the same. So I see where I have actually cut myself off in some ways.
Yeah.
So I'm and not having my worthiness tied to where I'm at. So it's been a good lesson for me. And,
oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you, Karen. That's beautiful. Yeah. And if we get that in the receiving, we're actually giving. We're giving people the opportunity to give. And we are also letting them know that we appreciate. This is that whole gratitude thing that we were doing the other, with that workshop. Yeah. So yes, learning to receive, a big thing, especially for women in our culture. We've been thoroughly trained to give and not so much to allow ourselves to receive. Yeah. Yeah. In fact, I was thinking about that the other day. The people who get regular manicures and have these incredible fingernails, they're actually receiving. That is one of the things they do as a discipline to receive. Can't see your fingernails, only your knuckles. There you go. Thank you, dear. I know. Mine are, well, I'm packing and moving things right now, so mine are all down to nothing. But yeah, Thank you so much, Karen, for sharing that. We all can wrestle with that one. All right, shall we move into lesson 9?
Yeah,
Yeah, Lacey.
I'd just like to share from, as we talk about giving and, giving unconditionally,
Yeah,
being open to receive, to allow other people or other things or to give to us,
yep.
in completing that cycle. Back in, when I first started studying New Thought,
Mm-hmm.
there was I think it was out of Unity, there was a program called the 4T program.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and it
He
was
was
so.
in Pacific Grove when he created that.
That's right, he was. Yeah, what Sturgis Smith was his last name.
Right, Stretton Smith.
Stratton Smith. Thank you, Stratton, for a good class. But I got so much from that on giving and how giving is a law that
Yep.
that you open the universe up. It comes back to you.
Yep.
In ways that it's beyond your grasp, beyond my grasp. For me, until that time, I was chasing paychecks. It didn't matter how much I made, from $10,000 to $100,000. I was still waiting for my paycheck so I could pay bills, or Peter to pay Paul,
Yep.
and so I'm taking this class, and it's about a tithing, which is given, of
Right.
course.
Right.
And I'm giving up my time and talent and
Treasure.
my treasure,
Yep.
and
Yep.
but just giving of my treasure, it was the hardest thing for me to do.
Yeah.
I've been so enculturated with that.
Yep.
I could. I would give it first. I'm giving 10% of 10% money before tax, after taxes.
After taxes, 10% of the net. Mhm.
10% of that, yeah. And I could just hear my father saying, "Oh, you fool! You're giving your money away to this and that."
Right.
I just so, it was almost, I felt subconsciously embarrassed, and I just kept doing it. And then all of a sudden, I don't know when, I had money, extra money in the bank.
Right.
I wasn't even looking for my paycheck. It comes in, I said, "Oh, okay." Then I started automatically depositing it so that I didn't need it.
Right.
And it taught me a lot about, matter of fact, it just it endeared me to this teaching, because
I understand.
it was one of the first things that I could see that concretely was true, that it was a law, and I was experiencing it. How good it is to give, and then I started giving gross, and and then I just started giving, and I felt so good with that, and that made a difference with me.
Yep.
And from then on, I was a new thoughter.
I get it. Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, Stretton Smith created in the 80s a program called the 4 T's, and it's to tithe your talent, time, and treasure. And you work through a 90-day program, and you make a commitment to do that tithing of the treasure and the time and the talent. And yeah, it has transformed thousands of lives. Excellent.
When Edwene Gaines does a prosperity talk, she'll explain what tithing is and stuff, and she'll say, "Now, any questions?" And there's no questions. She says, "Oh, come on, I know you've got one. You want to know, is it net or is it gross?"
Right.
She said, "Well, do you want to receive a little or do you want to receive a lot?"
There you go.
I love Edwin.
Yeah, she's amazing, and she's been doing it forever.
And she's
I,
still
I
the
know.
I know.
I just
She
want you to
was,
know. I just want you to know. I'm a prosperous woman.
yeah, that's right. So I think she's from Texas.
Yes.
And she was an elder in the system when I was ordained. That's been a while. All right, lesson 9. Right? And I love that first sentence. There is nothing the human heart longs for as much as to know God, the source and supplier of their being. I don't care what word you use for that, God, but to know that source and supplier of our being. That's the most important thing. That's what our heart has been longing for from day one. Everything we thought we were longing for, that tricycle when we were 5, that car when we were 18, it was really to know the freedom and the love and the power that we call the God of our hearts. Yes. And so the second sentence, people shift from one thing to another, always hoping to find rest and satisfaction in some anticipated accomplishment or possession. And this is the essence of the first noble truth in Buddhism. In Buddhism, no thing ever fully satisfies. It's been written as suffering is forever, is everything, or there's always suffering. There's a lot of translations, but the word that was translated as suffering actually means dissatisfaction, and no thing ever fully satisfies. So this is what she is telling us. The first noble truth in Buddhism, deep in our hearts is a great and awful homesickness that has never been and never can be satisfied with anything less than a clear, vivid awareness of the indwelling presence. Yes, that clear, vivid experience, that awareness of the indwelling presence. Now there's a line in the Emma Hopkins work. She says, you are an unlimited being. You can never be satisfied with anything except limitless reality, capital R, the source, the love, the light. We are limitless. How could we be satisfied with anything that is limited? And this is what the Hindus are trying to get us in touch with in so many ways, is to have us see that the material world is Maya, is illusion, is not the real thing. It's not the real deal. It's fun, it's interesting, it sometimes feels pretty good, sometimes it doesn't. But it is not what it is our heart is really longing for. So she goes down and explains this all the way down in all ages. She says, you may study, but then she says, in the middle of the paragraph, you may study with human teachers and from man-made books until doomsday, da, 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 da. In the middle of that, she says, but until there is a definite inner revealing of the indwelling Christ spirit, through whom and by whom come all life, health, peace, and power in truth, is all these and more. You have not yet found the friendship of Yahweh in the secret place of the Most High. When we are in that secret place, we've been promised we'll have immunity from just about everything. We've even been promised freedom from the fear of those things. And I think we all know that. We've all spent enough time in that deep, wonderful place where there is no fear. There is nothing that can concern us. That is what she is talking about, that secret place. So the goal is to have that be where we are living from, not someplace we go to now and then. So the next paragraph, where is this place? How can we find it? Where we are free from all fear or trouble is the point of mystical union between our human soul and spirit. That place where our human soul, our sense of self and spirit that's never been separated, never had a sense or experience of separation, lack, or want. There we no longer believe, but know that our source and supply abides always at the center of our being as our perfect well-being, ready to come into manifestation at the moment we claim it. We feel it. We know it. We feel our oneness with spirit, and we manifest this oneness. So being in that secret place of the Most High, that state of consciousness in which soul and spirit are united, in which we are one all in that same time and place, then our experience becomes that. Yes? And that's what we're doing in Treatment Tuesdays. And I think sometimes we're pretty successful at it. Yesterday felt really, really good. All right, so in order to find this place, the second paragraph under looking for the place, in order to find this place, this understanding, this awareness of God within themselves, many have been willing to spend all they possess. And she talks about Paul, after 25 years of service and preaching, said, I count all things to be lost for the excellency of the knowledge of Christ Jesus. Okay, so the things don't count. That's back to Buddhism again. You know, the satisfaction is in that knowing, in that state of being, not in the things, right? And then the next paragraph, if you've been, as most of us have, working only with your intellectual understanding, it's now time to become as little children and allow the mother father presence to speak to you through your intuition. When I was teaching intuition classes back in the 90s and early aughts, people, you know, a lot of older women would come up to me and say, I used to be able to do that, but it got beaten out of me. Almost every child is highly intuitive. But it's counter to our control culture to be able to have that access. So most kids are not allowed it. So become as little children is to be our intuitive self. It's not to become needy or dependent or infantile in our behavior. It's to become aware the way a child is aware. And that's what Jesus was saying when the kids would run up to him. He's saying they know, they're intuitive, their heart knows. They aren't trying to get this through the intellect. All right. Then the light you crave will come out of the deep silence of your quiet mind and become manifest to you from within yourself, if you will but keep still and sit silently, waiting on the Lord. And there's Charles Fillmore's practice, morning and evening for half an hour. And I think over time, he did it a lot more than that. But that was what he would invite people to do. Sit silently in that expectancy that there is a presence about to be made known to us, and to experience it as fully as possible. Then she says, and the very last lines on that page, and what God would say to you is a secret that no other can know. The secret he tells me is not revealed to you, nor yours to me. It's so secret, it can't even be put into human language. I love that. I love that. Our connection with the source and sustainer of all that is so unique and so beyond human experience, our cultural experience, that we can only get it in the ineffable imagery and sensation. There is no language for it.
But there's a knowing
That's right.
that has clarity that's crystal
right.
clear.
Absolutely. You got it. You got it. There is that clear knowing. And that's inspiration, revelation, intuition, all wrapped up into one.
With a bow on it.
I love it. So each human being must, when all said and done, deal directly with the source Now, here she's making a distinction through the Christ spirit within, okay? So that aspect of us that is never felt disconnected from the source is the means by which we are free to experience this oneness. And that's what is meant in the New Testament, then it's when it's no one can approach the Father except through me. All right, you have to enter into that state of consciousness, that Shem, that beingness that we call Christ consciousness, that is that total sense of mystical union and oneness with the source. Ah, yes. So she gives some examples in the next couple of paragraphs, the revelation, and the third paragraph right before the blue lines. Revelation never comes through the intellect, but always through the intuition to the intellect. And for those of you who are following the Noetic Sciences programs, the revelation comes through the right brain mechanism across the corpus callosum into the left brain mechanism, where it is translated into words, distinctions, and categories. So in the right brain, there is only the sensation and the imagery and that holistic connection. And in the left brain, there is the analysis and the language and the distinctions. And we've called the left brain aspect the ego in the past, the perceptual framework. The right brain is not hooked into the perceptual framework except through the left brain. This is all very cool.
So for me, intuition is often a feeling.
Mm-hmm. You have a kinesthetic intuitive faculty.
So
It is
which
translated.
side of the brain is?
It's your right brain. It's all coming in through.
Okay.
It's all coming in through here. Actually through the back of the cerebral cortex. Okay, not the frontal lobe, but the back lobe. And so your connection with the infinite, the mind, the spirit self, right, is possible because there is no link to the amygdala and the analytical function through the right brain. So the right brain accesses all of that through by its connection with the left brain in the corpus callosum.
So this is a little bit like what I was explaining to my dance mentor, that sometimes when I'm leading a dance, I get so connected into that space that when it's over, it takes me a while to reconnect. If somebody asks me a question, I just stare at them like I don't even know who they are.
Right on. That's right. Your
Okay.
perceptual framework is disconnected from your revelatory intuitive space.
Okay.
Well done. Well done. So there are no languages to explain that. Yeah, Lacey. I can't hear you yet. You're muted.
Yeah, but when we finish this thought, I would like to go back and I'd like for you to spend a little more time with that, the explanation of that you can only get to understanding through me. You know, Jesus
Right,
said-
that line. Yeah, right. You can only come to the Father through me, he said.
Yeah.
And that's the English translation, right?
Uh-huh.
So, right. So I'm the Hebrew or the Aramaic, because he wasn't saying these things in Hebrew. He was saying these things in Aramaic. And the through what I am is a better translation than me.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you.
I'm happy to find that one again. Thank
Yeah.
you.
No, I've wrestled with that one.
Oh yeah, we all have, especially when we've got people who are trying to tell us we have to,
Yeah.
adopt some person
Yeah.
as the only way to experience wholeness. Wait a minute. Because a person is an entity and an entity is more like a thing than a being, right? Yeah. Thank you for understanding that. So through what Jesus became through the Christ self, through that state of consciousness that knows union with the divine. Marvelous. All right. So after these experiences and examples, again, she tells us again, you know, we've run around trying to find it in others' teachings, but you must forget. She's trying to get us out of the intellect into that space where we feel, and it is a feeling sensation for most of us. And some of us also get visuals, and some of us get sounds like the music of the spheres, and some of us actually hear a voice. And as I explained yesterday in the group where Victoria was asking about channeling, the voice is their interpretation of what is coming through. It's what their perceptual framework can perceive as they are receiving this input.
What the channeler receives.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, what the channel is.
So what we're getting in channeled information is filtered through
Absolutely.
the channeler.
Right. If it's being
makes sense.
spoken, it has to get into their language center. That means it has to get into their perceptual framework, in the left brain. So the degree to which someone like Esther can go into the, I don't know, space, that empty space, you know, she can avoid having much of herself be present. But I have seen Esther come through more than once. Right. All right. Yes, Callista.
Well, when you said we feel it,
Mm-hmm.
brought back memories of when I used to do preschool during services
Ah.
with the children,
Uh-huh.
and I gave them a piece of paper with a circle, and I asked them, how does it feel knowing you are loved?
Sweet.
And it was not accepted.
The teachers didn't like it. Ow.
The parents complained.
The parents complained.
Yes, and that was the end of my career of working.
I understand. Ow.
You got ejected for much better reasons than I did.
Wow. Well, I'm delighted that you gave the kids that experience. And it's really sad that whatever that her parents got from that was not what
Right.
you intended. Yeah.
Right, but it is that we feel.
Yeah, we
and
feel it.
Trying to express that
Right.
to
And a large part of what the poet is aiming to do is trying to find ways to express that internal state. Right.
Mhm.
Like Robert Frost, whose woods these are, I think I know, right? He's not talking about a person, he's talking about a mental state where he feels that this is one,
Right.
right?
Thanks for letting me share.
Oh, no, I'm so glad you did. All right, so in the middle of, on my version 68, it's 3 paragraphs up before the blue line, there comes a time. Jesus knew that he had to leave his disciples if they were ever to come to their own realization. Had the master remained with the apostles, it's doubtful they would have ever gone beyond hanging onto his words, right? Right. You know, a lot of people have wondered why Buddha took tainted pork. First of all, meat. Second of all, pork. Third of all, tainted. And he accepted it, which is the official story of why his body gave up. He was in his 80s. And he took the opportunity to do it very publicly among his monks. He was on a platform in the middle of one of their favorite places to be, and they were all around him as he was going through this process. And one of the stories is this one monk who always thought he was better than everyone else was elbowing through to get right up front. And Buddha says, relax, just rest and sit down. It's not every day that someone gets to watch a Buddha die. Oh, I love that line. But he's doing the same thing. He's demonstrating to his followers, he doesn't have to be there for them to get the message, right? So he understood in the next paragraph from his own experience as well as the scriptures that the experience of power was not to come by the spoken word, but from on high. It was the promise of the Father, which you heard from me. He could tell them about it, but he could not give it to them. You know, all we can do in teaching, in reading, in anything is get pointed in the direction. And this is the gift that our source longs with an infinite longing to reveal to each of us.
You know, we hear a lot about doubting Thomas,
Yep.
but every one of the apostles had their own form of doubt.
Yep. Yep. Indeed. They did. So that realization that God's desire to show us the secret is the seed of our desire for the revelation. That idea that the infinite longs for me to connect was a huge shift for me, because I thought it was all about, I can't do it, I want it, I can't have it, you know, kind of thing. You know, human beings not being separated from the divine, rather than the divine is reaching toward me. And one of the things Emma Hopkins says is the slightest movement in the direction of the divine opens up this incredible flow, just turning your mind in that direction. Yes? Yeah. So then we get back to that thing about service. There are those who in their desire to know God are always seeking life for themselves, but neglect to use what they have in service for others. And if anyone ever asks me why I continue to work, there it is. It doesn't work unless we are in service to others. All right. We each must learn how to wait upon God for the infilling and then give out to every creature that which we have received. As Spirit leads us to give, and preaching, teaching, serving others, or simply living the truth and knowing that it is working in our life and the lives of those around us. That's the hermit. The person who knows that that truth is working in the life of the world around us. But we can also preach and teach and serve others. There's a Japanese story about the Zen master who was living up on the top of the hill on an island. And one day the villagers are coming up with this young woman, and they're just furious at him because she has declared that he is the father of her child. So they hand her the child. And a few years later, 2 or 3 years later, the sailor that she had been in love with comes back from the trip that he has been on around the world. And he extracts from her that she's had the baby, and now he demands to have the baby back. So the Zen master on the hill is told all of this, and they're yelling at him and everything. And he looks at them and he goes, so he's been living as a hermit, never had any interaction with this girl, but he just accepts it and he serves by providing that child a healthy life. And then the sailor comes back, and the village, not so much the village, but the family comes up and demands the child. And he goes, so, and lets the child go to its family. There's service without any demand and no explanation on its part either. All right, so the light that fills us will radiate from us without effort, right where we are. When you've learned how to abandon yourself to infinite spirit and do so daily, you'll be amazed at the change in you. And this is pretty much the story Lisa was sharing. When he gave up his attachment to the paycheck, there was a huge change in him, right? And we each have our version of that. Spirit will root out capabilities you're barely conscious of simply because they've been waiting there. And that's part of what Stretton Smith is teaching. By sharing our talents, by tithing our time, by tithing our treasure, we're discovering whole new ways of being in ourselves and in the world around us.
And if I can share from my inner control freak, it's also when we say no, it's empowering to those who have it within them to step up and do something, but someone else has always been doing it, so they've never had that opportunity. And I'm learning that saying no opens up a lot of doors for other people.
Sometimes
And-
saying no is a service.
Yeah, exactly.
And actually, it shows to someone that they may say no.
There is that piece
That's an
too.
example.
That's, yep, it's both. So yes, saying no can be a great service. All right. And I love that thing in the italics in the blue lines. When you have learned how to abandon yourself to infinite spirit and do so daily, you will be amazed at the change in you. Yes. So in lesson 9, we have 3 questions to ponder. Have you ever wished you could just go home? Yeah. See something.
There is a slash mark after.
There is. Yeah, it's an exclamation
Oh, is
point.
it an exclamation?
All right. Have you ever wished you could just go home? I certainly have. When I was feeling totally overwhelmed and incapable of dealing with what was there. What did you imagine home might be? Can you see how everyone wants that, how everyone wishes for that, everyone desires that experience? And then to ponder number 2, spend some time just contemplating something beautiful. And we've all done that. But the second part of that, let all your intellectual ideas move through your mind until there is only you and the object. Until you feel in tune with it, with no real separation between you. So don't try not to think about it. Think everything until there is no more thought. One of the songs that I've written, the line is, study till you live in no thought. Yeah. Yeah. And then number 3, what would it be like never to have to work for what you are ready to experience? What would your inner critic think about yourself? Can you see how such thoughts might be blocking your experience of abundant well-being without effort? And this applies to the culture as well as to us as individuals. One of the reasons Trekkies like Star Trek is it's part of the cornucopia economy. There's always plenty for everyone. The replicators provide whatever you need. There's no need for money. Everyone has everything they need. If they're going off the ship, they're handed the supplies they need to be effective off the ship. They don't have to think about it. That's the cornucopia economy. That is what is available to humanity, and it's what potlatch and much of what the Native American culture was about. It's all there. You just go out and gather it, right? You go out and collect it, and the appropriate elk or buffalo will make itself known to you, or whatever, depending on the culture you're in. So, can you see how such thoughts that you have to work for what you're ready to experience are blocking? So we can look at that for ourselves and for the culture. And then the practice, it's pretty much the same practice as last time. You're going to focus on the indwelling spirit. You're going to spend some time every day in the stillness. And then you're actively accepting, receiving all the good that comes your way. All of it. If there's a penny on the ground, pick it up. If there's a bottle cap on the ground, pick it up. because apparently they're worth something. I don't understand that world, but apparently they are. You know, if anyone offers you anything, accept it with love. And that is part of why the Buddha accepted that dish. Someone offered it to him, and it was his discipline to accept everything, all the things that come to your way. And then serving from the resources Spirit provides. So how does that feel as a lesson? Useful stuff? We got to take it a little further. All right. So lesson 10, this is our final lesson in the Emily Cady course. All the steps we've been taking in these lessons, speaking the words of truth and striving. Am I not speaking accurately?
Oh, there's 11 and 12.
There's 11 and 12. Yeah, you're right. The spiritual gifts. In her original version, she only did 10. And then Charles turned it into 12. So that's why I said what I said. I apologize for the confusion there. All right. All the steps we've been taking in these lessons, speaking the words of truth, striving to give out the light we've received, are carrying us quickly to our goal. Each step moves us closer to the time when we'll have full awareness of the Spirit working in us. With all the love and beauty and health and power that implies. Yes? Yes, each step. And here's more of our desire is God's for us. And I love this. We don't need to be anxious or in a hurry for the experience. Right? The Mother, Father, Spirit in us must desire to reveal the secret of the presence, or we wouldn't feel any hunger for the secret. Whoever and wherever you are in life, remember that the Spirit speaking through Jesus has said, you did not choose me, but I chose you. And that's that realization. We are already chosen to have the experience that we're longing to experience. And frankly, the only thing preventing it is our belief that we aren't. That's, the same that as Emma teaches, right? The only thing between you and your good is your belief that you don't have it. All right, you need not strive. The last lines there before the blue lines. You need not worry, you need not strive. You only need to let it work. That is the manifestation process. Learn how to let it work in and through you. All right, so we go into that place of the Spirit, and she's saying you can't go anywhere else. You can't go to books, you can't go to teachers, you can't go to TV, you can't go whatever, you can't go anywhere. You have to go inside. And then we receive that light, that love from a higher region within ourselves. A higher vibration than our normal waking conscious minds. Okay, our normal waking conscious mind, the brain, the default network in the brain has to function, has to be reduced so that the higher function, the higher vibration function can happen. And she quoted early on in the book, she said, John the Baptist said, I have to be decreased so you can be increased. That John the Baptist representing the intellect in that. And again, Emma Hopkins said the same thing. So guidelines. Most of us have no idea how to wait in silence for God only. Sitting in the silence doesn't mean very much to people who only know how to listen to external voices. And boy, do we live in a time where everyone is listening to external voices all the time. Yeah? And then she talks about the little girl who goes into the chapel, sits silently for a few minutes, waiting to see if God wanted to say anything. We can all do the same. So in many cultures, there is an altar in one part of the home, and people stop in front of the altar as they're going about their day, and they take a few minutes to connect with the divine in front of their altar, right? It's a passive but definite waiting upon God I'm at the bottom. Sitting in the silence is not some sort of lazy drifting. It's a passive but definite waiting upon God. It's not begging, pleading, or supplicating. It's knowing that the gift is on its way and expecting to receive it. And it's best begun alone in an undisturbed time and place, which is what the New Testament means by enter your closet. Go someplace nobody else is, and you won't be interrupted. And then be in that expecting state of knowing there's something about to be revealed to you. Then she says, begin your silence by lifting up your heart in praise and thanksgiving. Right? Connecting with our source in this way helps us center into in the higher presence. So as we are being in that sense of delightful praise and appreciation and gratitude for all that we are experiencing, we are already increasing our vibration and stepping out of the perceptual framework. Yep. And then she says, many people wanting to experience the stillness found their minds taking off in all directions at once. The natural result of trying to stop thinking. Nature abhors a vacuum. And if you try to make your mind a vacuum, natural processes will fill it right up again. I have to say, that's probably my language in there. You can prevent this disturbance by filling your mind with higher thoughts of the glories and wonders of God. Virtually all of the Psalms are that. They're David filling his minds with thoughts of the wonders of the divine so that he can enter the state of communion with the divine. And he could do it out in the boonies when he was a shepherd, but when he was a king, he had to go in and stand in front of the ark in the temple, in the tabernacle, because he couldn't build the temple because he'd done too many nasty things to be able to build the temple. But anyway, he would do that, and he would sing all the praises that he could. So almost all the Psalms include many, many sentences that are how wonderful and how fabulous and how generous and how supportive the divine is. And then there are usually affirmations about what is intended. If you think about the 23rd Psalm, almost all of us know this Psalm, right? You know, God, you're so good. You are leading me in all these beautiful places. If I were a sheep, you'd be taking me to the green pastures and the quiet waters and all of that. And he's feeling that, and he's saying, you're so fabulous. I could even go through the valley of shadow of death, and you'd be there, and you'd care for me, and you'd comfort me, and it's fabulous. You're so marvelous. And then he starts affirming, you spread out a table for me in the presence of my enemies, right? He's affirming that there is going to be a shift and change here. So that's another way to think about almost all of the Psalms. So you fill your mind with higher thoughts of the glories and wonders of God. And the words of a prayer can help. But they're marvelously, you need to pay attention to what the prayer is, okay? The one that we call the Lord's Prayer is a set of declarations. God, you are so blessed. Blessed be our Father, our supporter, our sustainer for all the wonderful things that happen. And yes, because of all the wonderful things that happen, we know that the laws of heaven are on earth at this time. Yes, that we can live in that heavenly life. And then it's so knowing that, grant these things. And that's the same thing going on here. So one of the ones that I like is God flows through me now as all peace and power and life. While you're focusing this way on God, in conversation with the Spirit inside, within, no outside thoughts can possibly rush in. Your mind is open only to God. And this is the essence of transcendental meditation. You are filling your mind, your brain, you're distracting the default network by repeating a set of syllables that you've been told have a particular meaning that are basically praising God. And you're just saying those over and over and over again so that the default network is distracted. It's not functioning in the evaluative way. So the information, the revelation, the peace, the feeling of connection can happen.
The 99 names of God.
Same thing. Yep. In the Arab tradition, you're right. So whatever words you choose, I'm on the next page, right? The paragraph before seeking, whatever words you choose, repeat them many times, relaxing, not straining. Now, this is an important thing that she does. Not reaching out and up and away to an outside God. All right. Both Katie and Hopkins say that if you're straining upwards and outwards, you're actually removing the energy from the body and you're not being supportive of the body. So they're saying, no, let it be, let it come in, feel it coming in, just relax, feeling it coming in. All right. Let them be said with the quietness and assurance of a child speaking to a loving parent or grandparent. And I love that, you know, Jesus called his inner father Abba, which means daddy. Daddy, you're marvelous. Thank you so much. I so appreciate that you've already done what I'm thinking I would like. And here is the specific. Don't reach out like that. It doesn't work, right? Just be in it. You don't want to climb out of your body. This abnormal stretching is not wise. So she's saying, instead of reaching out, just go inside. You know, instead of pulling into the outside world, go inside. Enter the inner chamber of your being. And then while waiting, we need to relax as much as possible, both mentally and physically. I love this image. Let yourself be like a seabird drying itself in the sand, consciously absorbing all the warmth and light. That feels so good. Now, we do have to remain in a conscious alert state. So if you're accustomed to drifting off in your recliner, I don't recommend meditating in your recliner. Or meditate in a slightly more upright position. You want to be comfortable, but you do not want to be drifting off to sleep. She says on top of the next page, relax every part of your being and believe that it is. Believe that that loving connection is being done. Know that divine science does flow in at the center of your being and out into the visible world every minute that you wait. For it's an unchanging law that everyone that asks receives. So if you can know the energy is flowing in, even though you can't see or hear it, that was where Charles was. You know, this whole year of sitting and waiting every night. He never heard a thing, but his body and mind and all of his business affairs and his family relationships all were greatly improved simply by the knowing that God was there expressing, ready to express. And then there's a caveat in the paragraph above receiving. Don't let waiting in the silence become a burden. This is not a should to add to your list. Right? This is a joyful opportunity to be as close to at home as your heart can imagine in the body. Okay. Now, effectively, she is guiding us through a treatment. We speak the word. We act by sharing the word. We act in service. We enter into that state of total oneness with the one, fully relaxed, fully knowing that it's happening in us and through us for ourselves and the other beings. Now we go into receiving. Having accepted that Spirit is working in you, that it's done, go beyond and give thanks to the innermost presence, that it is heard and answered, that it does now come forth into visibility. It moves the mind beyond all doubt. So this is Jesus in front of Lazarus. I give thanks that you've already answered my prayer. Even if you're not yet conscious of having received anything, don't worry or stop giving thanks. Don't think of going back and asking again, but continue to give thanks that while you waited, you received, and that what you received is now manifest. Don't go back and ask again. So that's something that we sometimes forget. We continually give thanks.
When I ask, what I receive is that knowing, that really deep knowing. And it's like, I don't have to ask again. It's
It's done.
done. It's done.
That's the state you're aiming for. Okay. For folks who don't get to that place, they need to stay there until they get to that place. If life intervenes, they go back into the state to get to that place. Right. So Emma talks about having spent 3 days, 3 nights, 3 days and nights on her knees until she knew that her son's school was paid for. She didn't say it. She said it in the third person, not the first person. One of my favorite stories that I got secondhand. I didn't know the actual guy, but I knew his best friend, and his best friend was being in awe that this guy came home in San Francisco one time and all the electronics had been removed from his house. He was practicing as Christian Science at the time. Scientist, he did the official report. The cops said, forget it. You'll probably never see that again. And he went, wait a minute. That's not how things work. If it's mine, it's mine. It can't not be mine. If it's mine, it belongs here. If it is something that is part of me, it is here. And so he sat with that for a long time until it got to that state of knowing, right? It wasn't just an idea. It was in that deep connection space of knowing. Well, within 48 hours, the cops said, we can't believe it, but we found your stuff. It was at the pawn shop. And then it was, and now we have to catch the thief. We have the information. We need to be able to catch the thief. And the guy went, oh, wait a minute. I don't accuse anyone of anything, right? So he went back into that state and he went, there is no such thing as a thief. Nobody is a thief. I don't accuse anyone of being a thief. There aren't any thieves. Thievery is not possible. And he went into that state of that deep knowing. And a couple of days later, the cops said, well, we caught the guy, but we can't charge him. So we can't charge him with stealing your stuff. And and so my friend who was telling me this story just was blown away that you could enter into a state of being where what you know to be true at that deep sense must be the experience. And in his case, it was always within 48 hours or so. Yeah. All right. So we want to know it and be consciously grateful for it. And Abraham, Esther, says, you want to be in that state of gratitude. Neville Goddard says, you want to be in that state of gratitude that it already is so in order to have the physical experience of it. You've already had the emotional experience of it. Now it's coming into your physical material experience.
And that emotional experience, that knowing, that feeling, when that happens, the gratitude just flows.
Yep.
I mean,
It's
because
just like,
it's done.
oh, wow. It's almost like a relief.
It is.
Mhm,
It is.
mhm. Well done. Well done. So in time, she says, we begin to want more than anything else to have the desires of infinite wisdom and love fulfilled in us. So she says the next full paragraph, and I'm going to do the quote, but the next full paragraph, our desires always are God's desires, but until now in a limited way. We see that more of God means more good, joy, and happiness. We soon throw away those limitations, all right? So in Corinthians, Paul says to his church members at Corinth, I was a child, I saw through a glass. Yeah, I acted as a child. I used to look through a glass, a mirrored darkly, but now I see clear, right? And, looking through that window, that's, if you've got dark outside the window, it's a perfect example of what he's talking about, right? And so what he's trying to say is we used to think that God could do these things for us. God could give us a car. God could give us a relationship. God could provide us with whatever. God could make someone healthy and well. But now we're beginning to realize that as we open ourselves to experiencing more of what God, the source, the sustainer, whatever we're, whatever name we call that source sustaining presence, has unlimited potential, we begin to open ourselves to unlimited potential in us and through us, so that our life can be transformed in amazing, unlimited ways that we would never, ever, ever have conceived of in our normal thought processes. So the presence is not limited by our past.
This connects to the aha I had this moment and this last week. I had two dear friends share a health issue that is the same issue that my husband died with. And I felt like someone had pulled the rug out from underneath me, because I didn't realize that it was a trigger to me believing that it was a death sentence. It was, doomsday. And I dearly love these people. And so I went into the silence and I said, I still have this attachment to the negative side of this information. And I need to release that before I can help them.
Woo!
And it took a while.
Yep, sometimes.
And I had to go to go at that side of things several times over the last couple weeks. And I think it's one of the reasons I ended up with my back all knotted up, because I was struggling to release all of this that I was holding on to.
Oh.
And so, but once I released it, I could turn that over to spirit, knowing that there can be a positive result in this.
Perfect.
Not only for them, but for me too.
Right on. Right on. Yes, that healing happens. Yes. More often than not, healing happens. It's, and the more we rely on that, the happier we are. Love that. All right. Not by might, not by power, but by my spirit. Yes. I thank thee, I thank thee, I thank thee. And again, the paragraph that starts, while you're waiting and as you let the spirit work, marvelous changes will be made in you. You'll have a wonderful new awareness of peace and quiet, of serenity. You'll feel something has been done, that some new power to overcome has come to you. You'll be able to say, I and the Father, the Source, are one, with a new meaning. Yes. And even if you're not able to sustain that sense of I am the source of all that is, we are one. When you do say it, it will be more meaningful. It will be less intellectual. Yes? Yes. All right. The bottom of the page, we no longer have to deny evil. We know in that moment that evil is nothing at all. We no longer affirm the good as a discipline, but because we can't help but see and say it is present. We can't help but see and say it's present. Faith has become reality. We wait upon and consciously receive from the source the power of the understanding that lets us speak the word and easily make perfection visible. Yes. Easily.
Sometimes not so easy.
As we continue to do the practice, as we continue to enter into that state, we get to that point. And some of us get to that point for a period of time, and then sine wave, life happens, and we go up and down. You know, we're in places where it's happening, and then we get distracted. And then we remember, and we get in the place, and it's happening, and then we get distracted. And that is just fine. There is nothing wrong in that. And as Abraham Esther Hicks says, it provides the contrast to remind us. All right. So don't be discouraged if you don't get immediate results. Every moment that you wait, Spirit is working to make you a new being. Yes. As with anything else, with practice, you'll get to the point where you can go into the silence, into conscious communion with God at a moment's notice, anytime, any place. And I'm reminded of Roy Eugene Davis. Did you meet him, Lacey? Amazing man. Finding that volume thing again. That microphone, it does disappear, doesn't it? Try the space bar.
When he pushes the space bar, we get his name.
Oh, that's true. So, while you're finding out how to unmute again, oh, wow. You just made a note on the screen. I love it. So Roy Eugene Davis ran a Unity Center in Georgia. He was amazing. Oh my goodness. You found a thing that Mary Claire found a while back.
Yeah.
But you're not finding your volume. That is weird. If I could unmute you, yes. All else fails. Yes. I love it. Abide to dwell. So, right. So what Roy Eugene Davis could do, he was able to do that in a moment. He would show up in, ministers' conferences and stuff, and they'd be sitting in the hotel room or the hotel lobby, and they'd be chatting. And one of my favorite stories, Vicki Derrick used to tell this story. She said, "Oh, you know Vicki? Oh, cool." She used to tell, they were sitting around just having a lovely conversation, and there was a desire to go get drinks in the bar or something, and everyone was kind of looking at each other, and Roy reached down off and picked up a $20 bill off the floor and said, "Yeah, I guess we're going for drinks."
Yes, I knew Roy. I was
I
initiated.
love it.
I was initiated in Kriya Yoga by Roy.
Oh, marvelous. Yes, he was Yogananda as well as Unity, wasn't he?
Yes, yes.
I think his daughter is maintaining the center now. Is that true?
I don't know. I know, but I think he was the last student. Was the last student of Yogananda.
He was amazing. Beautiful, beautiful man. I have a couple of his books.
He used to come to San Jose every year, and because there's a center here, there's a lady that has a center.
Yes.
And he would come down and give a workshop.
Love that. I'm so glad you had that experience. Thank you for sharing it. It's part of why you're so wonderful. Okay. All right, we're going to have those red marks on the screen for a while, I guess.
I know. I'm sorry about that. I don't know.
That's okay. I love that you were marking those words too. All right. So we are to dwell in the secret place of the Most High. So that's our goal. You know, we do it, we go in there and we sustain it as long as we're comfortable. And then we go out and we do the rest of our life. Our goal is to be there all the time. That our life happens from that place. All right. Now, it does not mean you're to spend all your time in meditation in silence, but that your mind is continually in an attitude of waiting upon God. This is what Brother Lawrence called practicing the presence. Whether you're washing dishes or teaching or hanging out with your buddies, doesn't matter. You're practicing the presence of waiting upon the source of all that power, that life, that wisdom, that intelligence moving into your experience. Yes. And it says Jesus spent many hours alone in communion, but he didn't spend all his time in receiving. He poured forth into the everyday lives of all around him all that he received. And so his path was the path of teacher, of actually establishing a whole new way of being on the planet. And that isn't always our path, but we still spend at least as much time and energy sharing and serving as we do receiving, however that unfolds. Yes?
Yes.
All right. Then, turning and expecting, the second essential condition to finding and abiding in the secret place is expectation from God. Is your expectation from God or from books, teachers, friends, etc.? So learning to not anticipate that what's coming to us is from the stuff around us, that our sense of feeling home and fulfillment is not coming to us from the stuff around us, but is coming to us from the spirit within us, expressing in and through and as us. That's the expectation. It says you are God's love, you are rejoiced over as you turn away from other sources and toward the spirit within you. God's singing and joy will fill you so that your life will be a great thanksgiving. And again, your God is yours alone. Just as the message is unique to you, your experience of the divine is unique to you. You can't assume that other people will experience the same. As I said, for Yogananda, the Divine Mother and the Christ mind were one and the same. That's a hard thing for us to get, most of us, right? There are Essenes here on the coast who are convinced that Jesus and the Magdalene are the embodiment of the Divine Mother Father together. And so they worship Jesus and the Magdalene as the embodiment of the Divine Mother Father. For them, that works. For those of us who are not thinking in those ways, it doesn't work. You know, for naturists or animists or any other, that divinity is going to show up in a unique way to them that has to do with the natural processes. This is going to be specific to you. Yes? And it will deliver you out of all your troubles. Your Lord, your inner being, your inner sense of who and what the source and sustainer of all that is, your sense of that has no other business but to manifest in and through you, and so make you whole with divine health, mighty with divine power, etc. This is why Neil Donald Walsh, in the first book of his Conversations with God, he's asking, are you God? And the answer is, for all practical purposes in your life, I am. This is your unique divine, your unique sense of, your unique vibrational match of the whole. And it's fine that it's be your unique That's, the infinite is boundless. It can show up any way it wants. So let all your expectation be from that within you that you've defined as the Lord, whatever that is. Your mother, father, goddess, your Abba, your whatever. Okay? When you feel unwell, wait you in silence for God only rather than upon healers, right? So now that's being said by a holistic physician. So she knows that all she can do is facilitate you getting to the place where the spirit in you brings you back into that well-being.
Interesting marketing idea.
Right. Well, it's kind of like Emma's saying, at some point people won't show up and needing healing, right? You hang out your shingle as a healer, and then after a while, nobody will show up. Right. So, your Lord, your specific, unique experience and expression of the totality of divine has no other business but to manifest in and through you. So to ponder. First of all, are we clear with what she is saying? It didn't push any buttons or ring false. Cool.
I had an awareness
Oh, good.
that there's a from the past of fear of promoting myself. I add a negative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you do. Good for you. Yay! Right. Yeah. Because we have been taught that it's not okay to promote the self,
Right.
ego, pride, all of that, right?
Being conceited.
Exactly. And we have all been trained to do that. Marketing my own self is the hardest thing I know how to do. Right. So I do almost everything by word of mouth because that's just, but that's the training we've received. But when it is the self, the capital S self, doing it, it's just doing it. I don't have to. Right. Well done. Yay. Yay. No more affirming the negative. I love hearing that. All right. So, number 1, ponder having to find someone to love. Try imagining the spirit is sitting right behind you, ready to embrace you and hold you in loving arms with no expectations, desires, except that you feel the love. Or let trees and birds sing love songs to you. They are. We've been told, number 2, that when we want to meditate or commune with spirit, our minds will wander. That's just like the many other stories that keep us feeling separated from our source. It is not necessarily true that our minds will wander, but we've been told it in order to make it harder for us to choose to do it. Does that make sense? We've been programmed to think that way. So what would happen if you began instead to affirm the truth? My mind is one with the divine mind and is receptive to the thoughts of God and no other thoughts. Consider the possibility that you are not only able to hear the thoughts of God, but that those thoughts and your thoughts are one loving, wise thought. This is one of the lessons in Course in Miracles. My thoughts are the thoughts of God. There is one mind, God's mind, one source of thoughts. So if I can affirm that the default network pattern of repeating thought processes is not mine, and that the right brain pattern of opening and feeling the holistic related connectedness of all that is, yes, I can affirm that. Okay, number 3, have you ever known something was going to happen, felt it in your bones beforehand, and it did? Yes, we all have. We have all felt that. That's the kind of feeling Jesus was talking about when he says, believe. You believe the light will turn on, the sun will set. What else do you believe this way? If it's something distressing, are you willing to rewire your brain by affirming the truth over and over again, right? And that believing can be about our bodies, that believing can be about the world, that believing can be about our families, that believing can be about money, it can be about anything. And we can choose. We can choose by affirming truth and dissolving the old pattern. Number 4, if you notice, you feel better about things when you are grateful to people who made them possible. If you haven't tried a gratitude journal yet, most of you have already done that. Number 5, just like waves on the ocean, what comes in must go out for the health of the system. So think about the ways you can be giving away some of what you've been blessed with. Consider what would be easy and fun, effortless, enjoyable, and energizing to give away, and maybe even see the results. Now, normally when I give blindly, but sometimes you get to see the results.
Yeah, it's parked in the parking lot out here.
Good point. She just gave a whole bunch of stuff away. It's beautiful, and it's going to be part of a center in Portland, so it's wonderful. One way to understand our relation to the source is to imagine all that is a big ball of fire. This is me, my usual image, okay? The source of all that is this wonderful sun-like ball of fire, and there's these rays, and we're all parts of it, and yet we're all rays in the sun and like that. So contemplate that for a while if you haven't in the past felt yourself as the tip of the ray of the sun. And the practices are the same as we were talking about before. You're going to focus, you're going to spend time in the stillness, you're going to accept and receive all the good, and you're going to serve others. And that's what we had scheduled for this week. How does that feel?
Like my plate's full.
Good.
It's a lot.
It is a lot.
It's a good lot.
Yeah. Thank you. Karen.
I turned off my video because my internet was a little bit wonky, but it's all good. That was lovely. I thought this was our last class, but I guess it's not.
Yes, it's not. We have one more, and that'll be December 6th. Is that when it is? December
3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, yeah.
Yes. Wednesday the 6th. It was a question mark whether we're going to need it or not. We need it.
Yeah.
All right.
You know,
Thank you.
I think
Thank
you shared, but I wonder what was her presence like Nona Brooks, the presence about her.
Yeah, Nona was this, glowing being that people love to be around.
Yeah.
Emily was this stern school teacher, school marm kind of person. And people liked to be around because they liked what she radiated as, but she was a little bit of an absolutist.
Okay.
Yeah. You had to get to know her.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Lacey. Sandra, did you get some good stuff today?
Absolutely, absolutely. I kind of feel like I relate to her a little bit. When you know it, you know it. You don't need to, you don't need to pussyfoot around it. You know what I mean?
That's right. But sometimes what we think we know and what's actually true get twisted. And so I use these materials and these practices to remind me of truth so that my neural network doesn't start thinking it's running the show again.
No, I was talking about Emily Cady, being stern and, I think what happened, well, this is an observation I think I've made about myself and others, is that we get in the human talk, and we'll be spiraling high, and then we get into the human talk, and we start spiraling down, into the end of conditions. So I mean, I kind of get it, and I'm a little bit that way. Like, I notice that people want to run around and hang out under a gray cloud. Enjoy yourself. And literally, I had someone say to me, "Oh, but you're, you're not like that. I'm like, thank you.
I'm
Yeah.
delighted that you had someone say that to you.
You can run over there and get into that gray cloud. She goes, oh, but things don't work out for me the way they work out for you. And I'm like, okay.
Well, you can affirm that or not.
Yeah, I always say I'm nothing special. I haven't been given a special dispensation, Anyway, that was good. Thank you.
Neil for Sister Sarah. Right. Thank you. Thank you all for being here, and I'll see you next week at 3:30.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye, dears.
you.
Bye, all.
Bye.
Have a marvelous time.
Yeah.
See you tomorrow.
Yeah, 2:00 tomorrow.